Orange team.
Hey guys, I'm Tim.
I'm Bob.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Daniel.
This is the Board Game Rundown. Today we are going to do a preview of Forges of Ravenshire. Yeah. This is a game designed by Sam Stockton. It is the second game coming out for BA Games. That is Brothers Awesome Games.
Oh, it's not bad.
I mean, it is bad.
Just wondering.
It's a BA game.
It is a BA game for sure. We were really excited when we saw this at Origins last year, and it's going to be coming out to Kickstarter, depending on your watching this, or maybe it was already a very successful Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
In which case, you're very late to the party.
Very late, but go buy a copy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in this game, we are competing to become the Forgemaster.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, we've got dice that we will place, and then they're going to get removed, all that stuff. We're going to play over the course of a year. You're going to earn money, and the most prestige and money at the end wins.
Most money.
Most money.
Yeah, your
that's
prestige transfers into money.
Yeah, see, it's the same thing. Money is prestige.
Ayo.
And so, like, at the beginning of your turn, basically, you're going to roll your dice. You're going to have one of each color. And then when it's your turn, you're going to place a die somewhere. And you're going to get whatever it says. There's usually two different, sometimes three different options as far as, like, what you can get, depending on the number you place down. And so if I place here, I'm going to get to do this one that's from 4, 5, or 6, which is to gain a special item here, a mystic. Yeah, I didn't want to say mythic, but I almost did.
Yeah.
To get one of the mystic items. And then I also get to add a guild worker here. And these guys are super awesome. Let's just say I put, well, let's see, what color would I pick up? Let's just say this one, because I'm going to pick up this color. I'm going to add it to my player board, which is fantastic. And now I'm going to look around the board, and I'm going to pick up a different die. So let's just say I pick this guy up, I slot him there, and now I'm going to run this whole guild right here. And then what's really cool is then in the next phase, after everybody has placed all their die, picked up all their die, now you're going to move the die over to the second half of your player board, and you're going to decide what you're going to do. And there's a whole variety of actions. We actually have a tutorial video which will go through everything in great detail, thanks to Mike and Bob. But yeah, I mean, I could place it here. It's going to help me generate X amount of charcoal, maybe give me, like
bonus resources,
some extra resources, things like that. And I mean, that is the very quick and dirty version of how to play. There's different sorts of contracts you can get. You have to get to a certain level of prestige before they'll let you get the really nice contracts.
Right.
Another thing is when you're filling the contract, you can add mithril to it, right? To make it an exceptional weapon. Isn't that the term he uses?
Yeah, so you add the mithril to it, and you helps you up. I think it's your reputation track, technically is what it's called.
Right, because you're making like a really fancy
Not
version.
only is that a sword, it's a mithril sword.
Yeah, even better.
And then same with Ember Gem.
And then the Ember Gems.
Yep.
And then the Ember Gems, you're going to get more money because you're making like this jeweled sword,
Jewel
right?
encrusted, yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth more.
And yeah, I mean, everybody's going to go around. One of the really cool things that this whole phase of the game is simultaneous.
Yeah.
So when you're teaching the game, you might go one by one
the first season. Yeah.
But after everybody kind of knows how to play, I mean, everybody's just kind of working their own boards,
generating resources.
Generating resources and trying to figure out, like, well, what contracts can I fill? Go on.
I was saying, so like the gathering phase at the beginning, you're just placing the dice, and it's basically like a worker placement. You get that very Raiders of the North Sea where you're putting something down, taking an action, picking something up, getting an action, but then you're also placing a die, and depending on what color it is, that gives you a different action. So it's kind of neat how like the numbers matter when you place and pick up, the color matters when you put the die into your guild, then the number matters again when you move over to the production phase and you're using it to run your armory and stuff over here in Smithy. So yeah, it's really neat how the die, what matters about the die changes from phase to phase.
Sure. A fun thing is if you get the opportunity to look at one of these boards up close, there's all kinds of Easter eggs.
There are, yes.
Hidden in there. The art is something in this game that drew me in immediately, but then I stay for the gameplay.
Adorable.
Huge,
but adorable.
Sam said that may not be the final size.
It's true.
Best
It's a pre-production
of both
copy.
worlds.
So my vote is for smaller books.
Mike, Dan, you guys have had some exposure to this. Anything I'm missing on sort of gameplay?
Nothing that's like basic. I mean, guild refills instantly when it's taken, right? I mean, there's like little things that we could add in, but as far as just a basic teach of the game, I don't like going too in depth during this section because that's what a how to play is for. So yeah, I think that you hit it up.
Oh yeah, I did it right.
Yeah.
Didn't even teach it wrong yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I mean, there's all bunch of stuff. Like we could dedicate a whole section to what you can do with action tokens.
Oh yeah,
right?
there's
There's a
all
whole
kinds of
thing.
good stuff.
But we'll probably go into that in final thoughts more than a basic how to teach. Basically, action tokens are amazing. You turn them in for other things. You know.
Yeah. Very useful. So we will talk a little bit about components, but not too much because obviously this is still pre-production copy.
Right.
But dual layer player boards. Very vibrant artwork. There looks like, we did play with asymmetric player powers. You know, there's.
There's 4 of them right now. It talks about maybe some more, but yeah, there's at least 4 of those, or one for every person.
And the
player aids are super helpful. They've got a nice breakdown of like, there's this generic icon. This just means goods. When it means goods, it can be any one of these resources. Same thing for the mystics. So in order to see this one generic icon, that can mean any one of these 4 mystics. It's got a nice breakdown of the gathering phase because that's the one that's done like turn by turn and like when your action tokens can be used during that phase. And then it has a nice card too that says what are all the things these action tokens can be used for. So it's super helpful and a good breakdown on the player aids as far as what can be done when.
Yeah, really, really good. I also like the customizable. I mean, a little bit. Player board, right? You can unlock
Oh, sure.
different
yeah.
upgrades that you can do to it.
an extra guild spot. There's there's
You can upgrade
you
your
can upgrade your forge. You can upgrade
charcoal kiln. Yep.
So there's things you can do to sort of customize your board a little bit, not too much, right? But a little bit, enough there. But the dual layer player boards really helps.
Yeah.
Stop this
track
from
your
being
bits.
too fiddly, right? Because if you could
Bump
bump
the
this
board a
pretty
little
good.
bit.
And it, you really have to, get it to.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Picked the wrong day
Don't
to
be
quit
nervous.
sniffing glue.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it holds them all together pretty well.
Sure. If we're in kind of components, I just want to say, obviously, I don't know what final production is going to be like and stuff, right? But one thing I will point out is I love this folding player board where, obviously that squares it up. It fits in the box really good, right? But honestly, I just have a weakness. So I have a weakness for round boards. I have a weakness for folding player boards. It is so cool when you fold it out in front of you and it makes it so much more sprawling and everything. And
Right.
and obviously with the double layer then, it makes it a nice
A wise
chunky-
man once told me, though, that any player board is foldable if you want it.
That's
If you
true.
try hard enough.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would call that man wise. That is
It might have been the
information.
voice in my head.
So yeah, I mean, all the cards seem totally fine. These are, nice quality chits. We have nice chits here. The problem is we just don't know what it's going to be like. So we're happy with this as a production copy. As a matter of fact, Mike, you were the one that was talking about how you're like, for a production copy, it's one of the best you've seen.
It is.
Or a pre-production copy. Sorry, I keep saying
Yeah.
production. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to say.
For a pre-production copy, that rule book is one of the best I've seen. I mean, there's going to be a few small edits, but I mean,
Yeah.
there isn't a whole lot I would change format-wise. I read that book. I knew how to play. It was like, it didn't feel like I needed a rules video, but that shouldn't stop you from watching.
You should
it.
watch it
Heyo.
anyway.
Link in the description.
That's right.
Yeah, I think for a pre-production copy, it's fantastic quality, no question.
Well, and we've seen, so again, we have played Cult of the Deep, right? Their other game. And so we have seen a production that they can do. And I was overall very impressed with that game, especially if you got like the dual layered player mats for that game and stuff. They did have a slight problem with their first run of that where things were miscut slightly, and they fixed that and everything. And I was very impressed with the updated fixed copies of that. So I'm expecting similar production value, from this.
Yeah.
And obviously, if not turned up a little bit, because they've learned things. That's how you go. Hopefully, you keep learning. So, yeah, overall, pretty darn impressed.
Yeah, again, for their second outing, going in a completely different style of game from Cult of the Deep and having a completely different art style,
Yeah.
I enjoyed this at Origins. I enjoyed it since we've had it in our possession and got to play it. I've heard some people, like my brother-in-law, didn't love like the box art.
Sure.
I like it.
I do too.
I like it quite a bit. I think
that
is
might be my favorite part. I love that box.
I love can you reach those other player boards over there, Mike? In the box?
This was a, and this is again just to taste, right? But like this box art, if I told my wife like, oh, we're smiths and we're forging weapons, she'd be like, nah, I don't know if I want to play that. But I'd be like, hey, you want to play this game? She'd be like, well, yeah, let's check it out.
Yeah.
And honestly, you could have put any of the characters on the front. What they should do is an Abyss thing where you have a different box.
Different box art. For
Oh yeah, that's smart.
And then people would just be fighting over because I want this dude.
Yeah, he's the
I could
cutest
even
one.
see. I could even see. I don't obviously.
That's the one
guys,
that's on Tim's right there. Is that guy?
Yeah.
I don't know production costs and all that stuff, but I could even see like a cool little select your sleeve when you back on Kickstarter thing, right? And then you just slide a sleeve on of your favorite character. That'd be really cool.
I got to message Sam real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I like how so the player boards all have a big image of the faction that you're playing on, and then on the back side of that is the if you're playing solo mode, there's another solo board on the back side, which
smart.
is a good use of space.
I did it on purpose.
That's right. Then it opens up and it gives you this huge, awesome dual layered player board.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that could come out of this once this is in final production.
Yep.
But I appreciate how smooth the game already feels. It's still in.
Very intuitive. It works the way you think it would, which is very important, I think, when it comes to games. If you're like, well, I would think it does this. Let me look at the book. Yeah, it works exactly like you think it would.
It did that. It worked like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Anything else? I guess, being a Kickstarter preview and this not being, we're not going to rate it.
Right.
But we will basically just, do we recommend this or not, or what we think. But does anybody have anything else they want to add or contribute before we go into
The recommends or not?
whether or not we would back this or?
No, yeah, I'm
recommend
just
it?
ready for kind of an open discussion, final thoughts kind of thing.
All right, Bobby, get us going.
I really enjoy this game. I spent the day last week teaching new people how to play. Everybody that played it really enjoyed it. A couple of the small things that they were interested in, maybe some new guild members that come out later on in the season because they were hitting that spot pretty hard by the end of the game. It kind of ran out of some pieces, but it's fantastic. It's an engine builder where your engine's already running. So many games you play, and it's it takes the first 3 or 4 turns to kind of really build up, and then by turn 6 the game is over. My engine's just really starting to go, but no, this thing you really start humming from turn 1, and it's super enjoyable. I highly recommend the game. I really like it. I'm sad to have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Sam, stop doing that to us.
Right?
Yeah, stop giving us games, Sam.
Well, I'm going to rephrase that. Stop making us send these games away.
Yeah, because you felt the same way about Cults of the Deep.
I did, yeah. And I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Cult of the Deep. Because, while Cult of the Deep was a lot of fun, the social deduction is not my favorite type of game,
Right.
this has got dual-layer player boards. It's, worker placement. It's engine building. It's got so many things that I enjoy, and it hums really well. So
Yeah, right on. Mike, you spent some time with this game.
I have spent some time with this. I had to do a bit of research to come up with a script and do a rules video. So I'd like to think I know it inside and out now, which I do, but it's not hard to learn. I like how easy it is to pick up and play. There's a lot of depth here without a ton of rules overhead, which is just right up my alley. I like elegant games. I like the combos that you can get out of this. I really like how you place a die, then you take stuff. Then you pull a die, then you place stuff. Then you place that die on your player board and you get stuff. And that's just one turn. And so there's 3 really important decisions to make all within one turn. Plus the fact that the die you pull, not only does the color determine what guild you're going to be able to run, but those same 3 die that you pull are going to be activated on your production board at the end of the turn. Now the pips matter. So not only does the color matter, the pips also matter for a totally different reason. I also love games that give me a ton of stuff and say, here, just go do what you want with these things. And that's how I feel like every time I run the production phase. So you play 4 rounds. You place all your die, pull your die, run your guilds, do that 4 times with your 3 dice. But when you get to that production phase, it's just so interesting because you have so much stuff you can do. I remember looking at Sam and I'm like, I think I can get a second contract this round. And he's like, if you think you can, you can. If there's a will, there's a way. And then you start looking at your production board, and there's so many different ways to get the resources you want. And you're just trying to min-max that production turn, which, by the way, fantastic that it's simultaneous, because there would be downtime in this game if that production turn was not simultaneous. But instead, there's hardly any downtime. But the production phase is just awesome, where you're just trying to get all those resources piled up to fulfill as many contracts as you can. I've had a blast with this game. I think it's really good. I think it's a fresh take on dice placement and resource conversion.
I like how it's easy to manipulate your dice, because some people are like, oh, I rolled every dice game, I never roll what I need, and blah, blah, blah. Well, the dice that you roll, you can manipulate with these talismans, pips up, down, wherever you want. Dice that are already on the board that somebody else might have rolled, you can pip up and down those dice as well. So it's like there's really a lot of ways that you can. Well, it's the same way, but it's easy to get to manipulate those dice to get the numbers that you want to have on there.
Well, there's also just a whole thing too that like, so it doesn't just matter in this game what you rolled, because like, so you're talking about like Levi is big on this about like, oh, I just never roll what I need. Right. But that's fine. So I really need a 1 this time. Right. And I roll a 3, 4, 5. Okay. But if any of them rolled a 1, that 1's going to be on the board at some point. Right. So I just have to try to take that 1, right? Like there is still a way
to get it,
to get that, right? Depending on, turn order and how you spend your, efficient of your turn and stuff like that, right? But yeah, so that's really cool. Again, everything has been said really that I would say. I'm very impressed with this game. I love place a die, take a die, or even just place a worker, take a worker, right? Like that whole thing. It hasn't been done a whole bunch, and I just think it needs to be done more. It's such a cool way to take a worker placement, dice placement type of concept and double how much you can do. That's all it's doing. Is when you would normally place a worker and get it, now you're placing a worker and getting it, and then taking a worker and getting it. And that's so cool. And the only rule is you can't take the die you placed. So if I put a die here, I can take this die and take that action twice, if I really need to, that turn and stuff. And all that's really cool. The way that the contracts work and everything, like you were saying, I think that's very clean. And you can really try to squeeze out. And I also like that the different contract levels give you different things. And it's not necessarily higher is better all the time.
Right.
Points wise, it is for sure. But like when Mike and I played, there were times in like the second to last round where we just completed some grays because we wanted action tokens and we wanted some quick points. Right. So like you might be this well-off Forgemaster, but sometimes you just got to make a simple knife for someone, and because that's gonna help your business.
Bang it out real quick, literally.
Yeah, and that's just gonna help you in some way, right? Public relations, right? And I really like how a lot of that works. Obviously, all the engine building here with the guild masters, you called them, right? That's all here. My number one takeaway, Bob already said, this is an engine builder that you start the game with a working engine, and you feel it instantly. When I played this at Origins, I only played like 1 or 2 rounds, and I was like, oh my God. You start the game, you roll your dice, you place them, you do them, you run your production phase, or whatever it's called, and then your engine is on fire already and you're creating things. That is such a good feeling. My only, not even negative, my only thing that I want to pay attention to in the future is how these titles, is that what they're called?
Yep.
How these titles work, because I don't tend to like in games, and I get it, they're just there for bonus points, you can technically ignore them. But when there's these set goals that people are trying to achieve, it is a sucky feeling if 3 people at the table are all working towards have 5 sword things created. One person's going to get that first. Now, you can tie. If you create it in the same round, you tie, right? But if someone gets it a turn early because of some efficient engine thing they did, then there is that sinking feeling of man, I just spent 4 turns working towards this goal that I don't get. Now, you've created 5 swords in the meantime. You have a bunch of other points. You're only losing 10 points. But when you have set titles in games, it does worry me about how well balanced they're going to be and how easy it is for people to actually fight over those and not just have runaways with them and stuff. We haven't had that yet. But whenever a game has titles, I keep my eye on it. And so that's something I'm going to keep my eye on as I follow this game. But otherwise, just thoroughly impressed. What a great worker or dice placement, engine building, contract fulfillment game. If those words mean anything to you, I would bet so much that you'll like Forges of Ravenshire.
You were talking and something occurred to me is I want every worker placement game now to have dice as the workers, because how much more interesting is it if these were just workers, right? If this is just a meeple that I'm putting out and then and then I'm taking another one, fine. but I could only have basically one thing here, that I'm going to get, and then and a thing I'm
Sure.
going to get. But because you add dice to it, and now you've got the variability on what kind of, depending on the pip, like what number, it's like, holy crap, that's even better, because now that adds an extra step.
No, yeah.
That is not overwhelming, right? It's like Mike said, there's a complex
overhead, yeah.
there's a complex rule set here that is elegant though, and it's intuitive. It just does things, very well. And so I have not played a lot of place a die, pick up a die style of games, and to me, it makes, like, the more I'm thinking about it, it's like, how much cooler would, I like Lords of Waterdeep. How much cooler would it be if those were die for your workers that you're placing?
That's called Champs of Midgard,
and
just so you know.
And the values matter. No.
The values matter.
No, you're not placing dice on the board. You're placing workers on the board.
That's true.
Yeah,
See.
well, it
was still pretty
dice.
funny.
I had to try.
Nice try. But the way that just adds like an extra thing, but
Yeah.
it's not like
It's the easiest way to take this concept and just blow it up.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more depth here, because it would be the equivalent of having like asymmetric workers, right? Like, if you put a farmer
Different
here, you
colored
get
workers.
this.
Yeah.
If
Like,
you put
the
a
white one does
yeah,
this, the
yeah.
blue one does
It would-
that.
but
Yeah.
this is just so much simpler
Easier,
and
yeah.
cheaper.
Yeah,
Like, it's
way
just
easier.
way easier.
Yeah, well, this one has a hat, so I get the shade
Yeah.
bonus from
Wait,
this.
is it a
Exactly.
top hat or
Yeah.
is it
Oh, wait, I can't
a bowler's
tell.
cap? Yeah.
Can't tell.
Right.
No, it's just great. I love it. I'm very excited for this game. It is now, full disclosure, like, I call Sam a friend, but because he's a friend, I feel like I could be honest.
Yeah,
with,
we could tell him his game wasn't good if it wasn't.
yeah, or I would just be like, I didn't like this, or I
Yeah,
didn't like
not
that.
for us. Yeah.
But no, man. I mean, we before he was a friend, and we saw this at Origins,
true.
and we're messing around with it and stuff. It's like, holy crap.
This, yeah,
You
it
know,
really grabbed us then. Yeah,
and,
we played one season. That's all we played.
Yeah, and it's also Dan's going to recommend it blindly because there's snow on the board, which makes it winter
That's
themed.
true.
It does.
That's the whole point.
My favorite round of the game is round 4, and I think that might just be because it leads into the final scoring, and that's really fun.
Sure.
Or it's winter. One
It's
of those
winter.
two
It's winter.
things is.
Yeah.
We didn't even mention the fact that you can upgrade your forge like Taverns of Tiefenthal
Yeah.
style and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, just there's so much going on here. It's really
Yeah,
good.
it's really good. I'm really excited for this. This is a very strong recommend. This is a game that I think is complex enough to get people like Bob, who like heavier games, to want to play, but also not gateway, but deceptively easy to learn enough that I
Yeah.
could get like my in-laws and my wife to play this. Right?
Yeah, a couple of the people that I taught last Saturday they had game before, like they played some, but they weren't heavy.
Well, they're not going to
gamers.
jump down on a Lacerda or like
Right,
a Mind Clash game, right?
That's all they
Yeah.
owned.
Yeah.
But it was funny because
yeah.
like the one guy's like he had 2 legendaries and he's just like I might be able to do both of these. I don't know. And I'm like, let's see if we can figure it out. I went over there and we knocked both legendaries out
Nice.
in one round, and it was pretty impressive.
Well, like Sam said, if
Yeah.
you think
Think
you
you can.
can,
Well, yeah,
You
it's because
can.
of how amazingly good and useful
trading's
the
is.
trading is. Yeah, like turning stuff into stuff and then stuff into stuff, and yeah, that whole resource conversion
it's
is.
combo-rific.
Yeah.
It is combo-rific.
And then the last thing I want to say, only because I said that we would bring it up, is the action tokens are
oh, yeah,
amazing.
you did say that.
You get them throughout the game, and you turn them in. There's a whole card somewhere that says everything you can turn it in for. And then also there is you get them during the production. I always call it the production phase. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mike.
I couldn't remember. Yeah, it is
But yeah, there's just so many things you can do. That's the main way that you get contracts, is you turn those in. There is a limit to how many you can do per turn, not necessarily like per round, but like per turn. You can only do one transaction. But yeah, they're just fantastic. Really collecting those. Sometimes you feel like you're wasting a turn because you're just collecting action tokens, but it's because that turn is then just like a prerequisite to open up every following
Yeah.
turn with action.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't feel like you're wasting your turn just by getting those action tokens. Even late game, like they also turn into victory points.
They do.
So like,
One for one.
they're just getting those is almost never a bad decision.
Well, and again, like Mike said earlier, you're getting so many resources, and it feels so good, right? How many engine builders are? It's like, I just got my engine going, game's
Game over.
It feels so good to have so many choices. Like, well, I can do this and this and this, and then it's like, okay, you start eyeballing contracts. And there's a ton of them. So yeah, there is the possibility someone's going to take the one you want, but trust me, you've got enough crap
Right.
saved up
Well,
that
that's-
you're going to be able to get other
That's a
other
nice thing
things
too,
and
though,
build
because you can spend the action tokens to take a contract, or you can spend just the same one action token to
Right.
clear a whole row, put 3 new ones
Yeah,
out, and then
which is a thing that Dan hates, is being able to clear the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a terrible mechanic.
Which every game should do that has a market.
Yep.
Just to spite Dan.
We didn't even really go into the combo that you can get if you load up your guild board. Like, say for example, you keep adding these green guild tokens to your board, and now you've got 4 things. Now every time you're pulling dice, you're looking at green, because every time you activate that guild, I'm going to get a good, and then 2 ore, then 2 charcoal, and a leather every time you pull back a green. And that's just another level of engine building that this game has, which is really, really unique.
Yeah, and when you move to your production phase, you can run the guild again one more time if you really want.
Yeah, if you really want more stuff.
Dude,
yeah.
I did that a lot last time I played. Every game, I actually had this. I had a green filled up, and every round I was putting a green die. Well, I didn't need to put a green one, but I just happened to keep doing that. But like, I kept putting a green or a die in that and rerunning the green again, and it was just like, oh my god! Like, hey, can you hold on to some of my resources for me? I don't have room over here.
Got so many.
To add one final thing is everything feels useful.
Yep.
There's no spot on the board. There's no spot on your player board.
No,
There's no guild that is not viable. Everything feels good.
Yes, that is a very good point. All the spots are very important. There's multiple times during the game where it's like, dang, like I need, steel here, or I need leather, and somebody's there, right? And it's there. It's never like, oh, I never needed ore. Like, no, you definitely need ore.
Well, and not just that. This goes into what Bob was saying earlier with the people who are like bad, unlucky with rolling dice and blah, 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 right? So like in the wood, the 1s and 2s are the best one, and the higher you get, it is worse. But as you get over here to the, what's this called? I was going to say charcoal. As you get over here, the 1 and 2 is the worst one, and you want the 5 and 6, the higher one, right? So like all these different locations, whether you have a high, a low, or a medium die, it's good somewhere. And you might not need that resource at that time, but then you're stockpiling. That's what it is.
Right. So yeah. So in the spaces 1, 2, and 3, the 1s and 2s are good. In the 4, 5s, and 6 spaces, the 5s and 6s and the 4s are good. And then over here in your production, the middle numbers, the 3s and 4s are good.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's so clever. It's so well designed.
So you're rewarded basically for taking basically any of the numbers.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Depending on where you're using it.
Sam designed this. It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
I spoke hyperbolically a second ago. I didn't mean to get that happy. I'm sorry.
Dan, you're 100% right.
Is now when we say we like Ed better? Is this what we
boy,
say?
okay.
I'm just
Staying out of that one.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing charcoal into my forge.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
getting
Firing
hot.
that killing
That's
mode.
the
getting hot.
expression.
But yeah, man, this is great. We loved it. We've had a really good time with it. I think a few of the negatives that I've heard were not even really about the gameplay. It was maybe about some design choices. And those weren't problems that I had, but I get it, right? Everybody's experience is going to be different, when you sit down and play a game, but yeah, this was fantastic. I'm really excited.
I recommend it.
Strong recommend.
Highly recommend. Strong. Yeah.
2 thumbs for me.
Okay,
thumbs.
well, you didn't have to outdo us. I don't know.
Good Lord.
Good Lord.
Here, Bob, say 3 thumbs.
3 thumbs
There
up.
we
Oh
go.
my
All of
God.
them. All
Yeah.
my thumbs are up.
All right,
Well,
guys.
it just got awkward. On brand.
This has been Forges of Ravenshire, and for the Board Game Rundown, I've been Tim.
Bob.
Mike.
And Danny.
We'll see you next time.